we're getting closer to connecting San Fran. Yeah, where they are in Valley is way down there. There's a lot of other markets. I think it's actually more interesting for those of you who haven't been kind of paying attention that Waymo's footprint in San Francisco is kind of going south. South? South, closer to they're really close to the airport. Could Waymo, be close to San Fran? I think you've got some information that you've been, checking out recently on this topic. The San Francisco airport and Waymo, what's the status?
Yes, if you look at it from a geographic standpoint, Walt the Navigator is correct. They are going south. They're in Daly City, and they're coming up from the south, going north. They're essentially going to squeeze the airport. If you're going to squeeze an orange, you're going to squeeze the airport. That's what they're going to do. And an SFO official confirmed to NBC Bay Area that the airport is indeed in discussion with Waymo about a process that would allow Waymo to map the airport roadways. And here's the kicker: with or without passengers, and driverless and not driverless. Once that mapping begins, Walt, we're one step closer to the great airport unlock, which then in theory, based on the way the roadways work, gets us to the great highway unlock. Could we potentially see the great highway unlock and the great airport unlock happen around the same time?
I mean, you can't have the airport without the highway. Period. End of story. You're not going to back road it from San Fran. And look, the squeeze thing I get, but the reality is, all they need to do is extend the San Francisco part of the footprint a little bit further, and the rides that you're going to have from the airport to San Francisco is big. I get it. Ideal experience when people land in SFO, they're going north and south. So ideally, you'd like to also extend the footprint so you can handle the entire region. But whatever. Maybe the point is it's going to take such a long period of time to deal with the airport that in that interim, the southern part of the valley that they've now just unlocked, it will creep up. And by the time they get done dealing with these officials at airports, then they'll be ready to do it. So this goes back to you. You've lived this world, in terms of dealing with the governments. This is kind of your area expertise. I think airports are incredibly slow. How long is it going to take? If we now have evidence that discussions have begun, how long is it going to take for them to get approved? And then when it does get approved, where do you think they're going to let them do pickups at the airport?
Let's do this. You have a new level-headed mayor in San Francisco. Mayor Breed is out. Very positive for Waymo there. It can go slow. It can go fast. That's politics. I'll give you a very conservative estimate. December 2025, January 2026. And that is a very, very conservative estimate. I am taking into account San Francisco politics, unions, activists, you name it, will all show up. So I'll give that very conservatively. Where are they going to pick you up? You and I both know. They're going to go to horrible land. That's what I call it, horrible land. Whoever had the cockamamie idea to put rideshare, lo and behold, so far away and prioritize taxis is an absolute idiot. It's a horrible user experience, and it hurts your economy. They're probably most likely going to put them where rideshare pickup is. Then, let's say we're going through rideshare pickup. We're going to fast forward here. For next year, we're in San Francisco. What if, say, 20, 30, 40% of all those rides are going into Waymos? How does Uber and Lyft react?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's horrible land. So I'm going to push back on that. I don't mind walking. It's not like JFK used to be. It's not that bad.
No, JFK's still bad. Don't even start there. You hop on that stupid train. Horrible.
All right. It's not that. You could use a couple more steps. Everyone should get their 10,000 steps in. It's good for your health. I will note that Uber, if you get a black car service, you do not have to walk to that pickup. You can actually get a curbside pickup. But let me go back again and say, ask you, what's the relevance of the mayor? Who is the so to speak decider here? And then kind of the second question layer to that is, now that Duffy's is in place, how much influence can the federal government have on making sure that these tech companies are not treated poorly with whoever's making the decision to decide whether autonomous cars can be in airports and then where their pickups are going to be?
It's most likely going to be a combination of the airport commission, the county commission. The mayor comes from the Levi Strauss family, entrepreneurial background, very successful family. Hopefully that Duffy, I would say could have influence. I'm not saying he's going to push the influence. I think he has bigger issues to deal with right now, including Boeing. Let's just cut to the chase on that. But I do believe that economic pressure could work to really escalate this because there is demand for Waymo at SFO. In December 2024, there were approximately 13,366 searches for SFO on the Waymo app. In addition, 718 people installed the app physically while at the airport. This is Waymo data. So if the airport plays politics, Waymo could push out a push notification to everybody that searched or installed the app. So-and-so wants to ban this technology here. Click here to voice your opinion. Waymo could run a political campaign that the airport could not back down from.
First of all, where did you get that data? I mean, this is obviously Waymo data. So the fact that you're getting it and it's getting released shows that they're trying to build the case to get the pressure to get themselves opened up for that market.
Waymo is getting really brilliant with economics, and a hat tip to the Waymo team on this because this data came out in their 2025 tourism impact report. And this really is insightful to highlight for you. At Waymo's current scale in San Francisco, that's 300 vehicles. Waymo had a $39.66 million positive impact on the city. Add airport access, and that number grows well to, ready for this? $88.9 million economic impact. Individuals are going to San Francisco for tourism and conventions, and they want to ride in a Waymo. The days of the trolley car being a San Francisco treat is the Waymo vehicle. That's the San Francisco. That's why people are going there. It is an economic tourism engine.
So, I mean, again, this is a Waymo report with economists that are hired by Waymo. So clearly they're going to put their best foot forward in terms of the quote unquote impact to the economy. It just makes me think back on how Uber started as a company when there's existing interests there, which in Uber's case was the taxi and limousine commission, where people owned these medallions, including former mayor Michael Bloomberg. That creates challenges to getting things done. Uber is obviously a large company. There's also still taxis, I guess, to exist in a certain extent. So the way Travis, the founder of Uber, dealt with that is just basically broke laws, right? Break it and then ask for permission. Waymo doesn't seem like the type of company to take that approach. You know, is it with all these things that you said, we get the arguments. Those are the right arguments to be made. There's still a kind of a labor component to this, although let's be honest, like Uber, there's no unions at Uber. So like who's arguing? There's no unions for taxis, I don't think. So like there's no strong labor argument, but there's still vested interest in local politics that could hold this back. It is all of these stats that you just quoted from Waymo enough to unlock that airport within the time frame that you predicted, which is end of year?
Yes, a couple reasons. Looming recession, economic uncertainty with tariffs, rising credit card debt, rising auto delinquencies, the consumer's hurting. And we saw a report now, we saw from the airlines, United, Delta, American, Southwest. What happened? Domestic airline demand is crashing. Only 15% of Americans are now looking to plan a vacation this summer because of the economic uncertainty. While San Francisco's economy, a big chunk of it, runs on tourism. I know I'll get the pushback on tech, but a large part of their economy runs on tourism. They look at all the jobs. And San Francisco has not fully recovered from the pandemic in terms of hotel occupancy rate. Waymo is a gift to San Francisco that should be treasured because it drives economic growth.
I mean, every time I go to San Francisco, the hotel prices are through the roof. So I don't know where this lack of economic impact is in San Francisco. It's very expensive. But look, I agree with you. Like the decline in some of the airlines, that's more incremental and bad news for Uber and Lyft in terms of rides. Like if there's less passengers, there's less ride, which is another reason why they're going to try and hold on to the positioning that they have in those airports even more. So I don't know. It seems like a bigger challenge. So Grayson, I'm taking the over. I think you said it was conservative. I think it's going to take longer than you're saying for the airport, just because I'm frustrated with the state of politics in California and New York. If it's a local issue, let's also now look at LAX. And if they're working on San Francisco, and I'm wrong, and San Fran does come online, this year, how difficult do you think it's going to be, Waymo, to gain access to LAX, given the politics that exist in LA?
Today, hard, extremely hard, because of the current mayor who's getting recalled. It's active there. Karen Bass, she's being recalled for her mismanagement of the Palisades fires. she vocally came out and she put letters to the California Public Utilities Commission for local control of Waymo. She wanted to take over Waymo and basically ban it in LA and have her do whatever she wanted with a vehicle, which goes back to LA's ridiculous autonomous vehicle practice back when LA DOT had a thing called the MDS, the Mobility Data Standard. There was a clause in the Mobility Data Standard that would allow LA DOT, and this is in public documents that you can FOIA or I can send them to you, that would allow LA DOT to reroute an autonomous vehicle if they feel that it wasn't in the right neighborhood and it wasn't built under the guise of equality. They didn't care about a business. They cared about politics. So very, very hard. But she's in the process of being recalled because only 19% of Los Angeles residents think that Mayor Bass did a good job responding to the Palisades fire, and 41% said she did an extremely, very poor job. And that's a UC Berkeley poll. It's not a conservative poll. And if she's recalled, most likely, if the city council votes to hold an election, which I want to state for the record, in the LA charter they do not have to, Rick Caruso will be mayor. If he's mayor, Waymo has a very clear path there because he has to rebuild the Los Angeles economy.
So you think, in your mind, Rick Caruso, if put in there because of the disaster, whatever that they dealt with in terms of the fires, that has specific positive implications to Waymo and the airport and highways and whatever it is?
Yes, big time, because the economic impact, and this goes back to the Waymo data study. Right now, Waymo has a very small fleet in LA. We do not know the exact size, but we know it's a small fleet. Had a $4.7 million economic impact. At the airport, that's $10.7 million economic impact. Combine that with San Francisco, now you got a $50 million statewide impact. Ramp it up over a year and a half, 2 years, you're at $200 million, $250 million impact. That's too small for the next governor of California to ignore the economic impact that Waymo's going to have on the state. At the end of the day, California's bankrupt, and they need people to want to visit there. They want people to vacation there and spend money. Well, one of the greatest ways to move people, in my opinion, is put them in a Waymo, let them experience it. Waymo is good for California's economy, and we have the data now to back it up.
I mean, I hear you. My concern is it's still California. And I think, is it a Bruce Springsteen song, New Boss, Same as the Old Boss? I'm just less optimistic to see all these things. By the way, I 100% agree with you, right? Because we are, presumably logical and, people in terms of how to approach this stuff. I don't know if logic necessarily always applies to the politicians that are in California.
It's a one-party state and one-party rule. There's no checks and balances in California. And you want to hope for the best. It's a great state. It's a beautiful state. You want to hope for the best, but I'm being optimistic, hoping for it. Am I going to bet on it? No. You're just hoping for the best.
This is why, going back, not to belabor this point, in terms of the impact that the administration can have. And yeah, you're talking about having higher priorities, but I think Secretary Duffy can, as I always like to say, walk and chew gum at the same time. The ability to, on maybe disparate items, impact what goes on at states for the economic benefit. I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity there for them to have some impact. And maybe part of the national framework is requiring states to open up these major transportation hubs to competition, which doesn't necessarily exist today.
Unleash growth. You can call the bill unleash growth. But if and when that happens, hypothetical, it's been widely reported that 15 to 20% of all Uber and Lyft rides either start at an airport and end at an airport. Could they come out and lobby against this potentially?
I mean, they should. And I've always said that, or I've said for a long time on this podcast, that the highway unlock and getting to the airports are some of the highest value rides that exist with Uber and Lyft. So it's not about necessarily getting every single thing that's covered, but if you're taking, that portion of the rides, that's clearly a risk. And, these are big enough companies and they have people in those positions that they should be doing what they can to restrict that competition. Yes, I think they will.
It ties into the whole, and Investors Business Daily did a headline called the Uber overhang. It really ties into that Uber overhang sentiment.